how much, for me, it's a wonderful story, super sad. And it makes me feel that when is this going to change? What can we do to change it? And I guess that films like yours, this tribute to Natasha, is also a tribute to fight the ignorance of people. I think it's very beautiful, but very emotional too.
Yeah.
And I'm an emotional person.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to know if it, for you, was something necessary that came from your guts and your heart, and you know.
Yeah. It felt urgent and necessary the moment I began working on it, and even just the beginning stages of thinking about the film. I began thinking about it in 2016 and didn't begin until 2017. And so 2017 and 2018, I was in production for the film. And there were many moments where it was very exhausting and I wasn't sure how I was going to finish this, but there was a deep fire that was burning that would not let me stop, that would not let me walk away from this piece. Not that I ever would, but yes, there was something down in my core that I don't have the words for still, about why I knew I could not, why I knew I had to tell this story. There was something burning the whole time. Natasha, her spirit was a part of the process the entire time. And I just couldn't, I couldn't rest until this story was done, until this film was done.
I remember when this happened. I know you were not even born, but I was.
Oh, I was born. I was just a baby. I was just
but you were like 5 months maybe.
I was 3 when she was killed, and then 4 when the riots happened.
Yeah.
It's
I totally remember, and when I saw your short, all these things came back into my mind. But right now we're facing George Floyd, and so this continues all the time. I don't know, what do you think we need to do for this to change? It's a structural problem, I think, in this country.
I mean, I don't know if Black people can answer that question anymore, because we were never the cause of the issue. So I think this is, so I think this is when everyone else has to look at the root of systemic racism, at the root of anti-Blackness, and really pinpoint white supremacy as the foundation of it. Because even though, when we look at George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, they're similar in the sense that it's anti-Blackness, just as Natasha, but their murders were police, it was police killing Black people. And so with Latasha Harlins, this was anti-Blackness happening within the community.
It was a citizen, it was another person, it was not an authority. Both are terrible. I mean,
oh, absolutely. But the root for both is anti-Blackness, is the fear of
the white supremacist ideology. No?
Exactly, absolutely. The ideology is so deeply ingrained within this nation, and U.S. imperialism has allowed it to spread, and so it's a deep-rooted issue.
I didn't grow up here, so for me it was surprising. I'm not saying that Europe is not racist, but it's not like, of course, there's racism, but it's, I don't know how to explain it. This is really, really extreme. But anyway, how did you get all, like her friend, the one she says from the swimming pool, that was so sweet, and she was, I mean, it was therapy for her, don't you think?
Yeah,
I don't know if it was for you, but for her she needed to be there and let us know how she felt, and the friendship, and in Latasha's being.
Yeah, so what's beautiful, it's been healing for both Ty and Shanice. Ty, Latasha's best friend, I've watched how they've both completely expanded and continue to transform from when I initially met them in 2017 to now in 2021. And it's been so beautiful to watch that healing. And it's also been healing for me. And I always wanted this film and the process to be healing for anyone that experienced it, anyone that watched it, that we can have healing within the same conversation of talking about trauma, that the two can coexist, that there are ways for us to discuss trauma and discuss death and anti-Blackness that is proactive and still hold space for us to breathe, to heal, to reflect, to continue moving on into the future and building a new future. And so that's what I wanted this film to really embody, those two dualities, how we can have rage and we can also have love, how we can experience trauma and also the rebirth of, you know, a new idea, the rebirth of healing. And so it's been beautiful to watch Ty and Shanice continue to evolve throughout this project. And something I will say about Ty, who's the one that speaks about the swimming pool, at the end of the film, she mentions, if LaTasha were still here, I probably would be a lawyer. Well, Ty has gone back to school and she is just a couple of credits away from completing her degree in criminal justice. So that's beautiful to see. She went back to school, I think, when the film started doing festivals. And, you know, I just feel like LaTasha has continued to inspire them to not let them let go of their dreams and aspirations. The park where Ty and Shanice used to play as children, and LaTasha, they're renaming the playground, they're renaming it LaTasha Harlan's Playground this April, on April 29th, which would have been the first day of the LA riots. And then also this year, yes, it's so beautiful to just see all of these different things manifesting and how we're making sure people will not forget LaTasha's story. And then Netflix helped us create a mural for LaTasha that's at the same playground. And it's the first mural that there ever was. And what I really hope is that, you know, we understand this story, we understand the root of LaTasha's murder, but in doing this, we really challenge and interrogate how we look out for Black girls in the US, how we hold space for Black girls, how we protect Black girls so that this doesn't happen again. And so by hearing about who LaTasha could have been, who she was, understanding this is all Black girls within the US, they all have desires, they all have goals and aspirations. And our goal is for them to live to see that, for them to live a full life, for them to live an unapologetic life.
So, Sophia, I would like to ask you in few words, because, you know, a lot of young people, they want to be narrators. They want to be like you. You could be an inspiration for many people who want to be filmmakers. Mm-hmm. How did you get into directing and narrating, and now you're an Oscar nominee? It's great. I'm sure you didn't say, I want an Oscar, you work hard. Or you said one morning you woke up and said, I want an Oscar, I want to be a nominee.
That's so funny. I actually went to undergrad for photojournalism. I really wanted to be a filmmaker. I wanted to be a cinematographer, but I was really intimidated by it. I was intimidated by the lack of women that I saw as cinematographers when I was in undergrad, and then the lack of Black women. And I let that scare me. And because of that, I decided to learn photography. I went to school for photojournalism. Thinking that I wanted to work at a newspaper. And then after I'd done a lot of internships and workshops with visual journalism, I realized I wanted to be a storyteller. I was an artist. And just because my work existed within the realm of documentary didn't mean I had to deny who I was as an artist. So I'd love for other young storytellers to really embrace all of them, to not allow themselves to feel confined within one title. And then when I accepted just how I wanted to continue to evolve as a visual storyteller, I began teaching myself cinematography. So I used what I learned with photography to teach myself cinematography. And then I went to grad school actually to learn visual journalism, or to receive a master's in visual journalism, documentary filmmaking. But then I took a break. I took a break between my last 2 years of grad school because I wanted to explore who I was as an artist. I really wanted to unlearn everything I'd been taught in school and re-engage with Sophia as an artist. Growing up, my dad was a musician. My mom was a storyteller. So I was surrounded by art. I was a theater major for the first half of my college career.
You were nurtured by culture and right?
Yeah, I absolutely was. You know, watching my mom as a storyteller, there were times where I used to perform with her at libraries, but I would always watch my mom build these worlds, tell these stories. And what I loved is that my mom, a lot of her storytelling was rooted within African folklore. So there's an interesting balance between truth and fiction. And so I want my documentaries to exist within that space, incorporating fictional elements and still using nonfiction, you know, elements to create this new language, to discover new ways to explore these worlds and these histories and reimagine histories which aren't there. So for me, my journey was a lot of unlearning, a lot of remembering who I was. Sorry.
Unlearning, I love it.
a lot of unlearning, and then a lot of remembering who I was as a young girl, what my you know, my own personal history was, how my parents as artists inspired me, how my parents as, you know, working class folks balancing their art inspired me. And I made a lot of short films between my beginning career in undergrad to NATASHA. And it was a lot of trial and error. It was a lot of mistakes, but all of those mistakes helped me discover who I was as an artist, who I was as a documentary filmmaker, and to discover my own voice. So with that, I would encourage aspiring filmmakers to trust their vision and trust who they want to be, rather than trying to emulate anyone else, to really identify their unique perspective that they can offer, and how they want to tell stories that's unlike anyone else.
So Sophia, has the nomination impacted you already at a professional level? Are you getting these crazy emails? I want you to do this, do that, or that's a fantasy that I created?
No, I get a couple of, I've gotten a couple of emails, but right now I am finishing a project. So I'm so focused on completing the journey I began with NATASHA and completing this new project that I'm working on, that I haven't really had a moment to sit within this reality to even engage with all of these emails. So we'll see what happens as we get closer to the Oscars.
But you know, whoever goes home with the Oscar in your category, it's fine. Being nominated is,
it's such an honor. It's such an honor.
So big. It's so big. And you know, since they cannot give 5, they give 1. But so no need to be
one
sad.
of those 5s is so beautiful.
Yeah, it's super cool. But the last thing, I don't know, do you have a couple of minutes?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what we do? We don't use narration. I mean, we would like to use your narration. So if you can tell us what is the film about in few words, and then we will use your narration. We'll cover with clips parts of it.
A Love Song for LaTasha is a short experimental documentary that reimagines the life of LaTasha Harlins, from the memories and the oral history of her best friend, Ty Biobard, and her cousin, Shanice Harlins, and reimagine her life and who she was as a young girl. LaTasha Harlins was a 15-year-old Black girl who was killed in South Central in 1991 when she was in a convenience store, a liquor store in her community. The Korean store clerk, Soon Ja-do, accused her of stealing. And after a little altercation, she killed LaTasha over $1.79 bottle of orange juice. And 2021 marks 30 years since LaTasha's murder. And since that time, there hasn't really been an exploration of who LaTasha was outside of this trauma, outside of these final moments. So much of her story has always been related to her death. And A Love Song for LaTasha really reimagines her life. We take her out of the context of her trauma and rebuild this archive of who she was and who she could have been.